Welcome to another Electrotechnology video, and this will be the first in a series of episodes where we actually talk to people from the industry in different parts of the industry and see where they came from, why they chose to be there, and all that sort of thing. So let's do this. Welcome to What's in Your Toolbox? So today we have Tara. Hello, Tara.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you end up getting into the industry, and why this industry? Why not something else?
Well, I was at school and my careers advisor came up to me and asked me what my favourite subject was. I said metals and engineering. We weren't lucky enough to have the electrical courses at school. And she said that my math skills were really strong and that if you put them two together, that she thinks being an electrician would be a good idea. So I wasn't 100% sure on it. So after I finished school, I went and did a pre-apprenticeship at TAFE. That's a couple of months. And then I decided that being an electrician was what I wanted to do. So I got a job with the electricity distributor and worked there for 8 years, and now I work with the union.
Excellent. So with the electricity distributor, so would you like just to explain what do they actually do, as opposed to most people probably watching this video used to seeing electricians, turning up to their houses and wiring things up, putting on power outlets and lights. So what does a distributor, what do they actually do?
Well, it's actually with the distributor I worked at is at Sydney. The kind of work you do in that distributor is actually a little bit different to the kind of work you do in the distributors in the rural communities. So with the Sydney one, it's very specifically based, whereas with the rural ones, the jobs you do, you'll cover a lot of different kind of stuff. So for me, as my apprenticeship, I went through, there's many different sections an electrician works in Ausgrid, and we went through and did 2-month rotations in different sections and got to try out a little bit of everything. Now this ranged from the drawing office, which is creating drawings of substations, and so it's like a house drawing but larger scale. Drawings of substations of the power lines, so that's drawings. That one's an office-based kind of thing. Then you go on the other section, you've got subs, which is substation workers, and that's working on the green kiosks you see on the side of the road, all the way to the larger substations that you'll see on the sides of the road that have big insulators and just look like, a big awkward looking switching area. And so that's somewhere else you go. Then there's another section called protection, and what they do is test the devices, the big circuit breakers that you put in. So you get little circuit breakers on houses. In substations, a circuit breaker's this big. You've got to test them. That's what protection does. And there's lots of different sections. With the rural distributors, they're a little bit smaller. So there's less people, so they need to cover more sections. So you won't get the same kind of thing. A subs technician in the rural distributors will do stuff that covers, they do the testing, the installing, the whole process instead of having different people coming in. What I did when I was at the distributor for most of my time after my apprenticeship, I worked in customer connections. Customer connections is exactly what it sounds like. A lot of it was replacing the cable between the pole and the house, but it was also checking if there was issues, seeing if people are stealing power, making sure the boards were safe for the houses, making sure we do fault loop impedance test, which is to make sure that if there's a fault, it goes back to the network and doesn't hang around the house ready to hurt someone.
Cool. That's really interesting. I remember myself doing a job, or actually being quoted to go and do a job where this building required an air conditioner unit, and I turned up to have a look at it, and it was actually going to be in a building they had behind the main building. So I went to the distribution board and opened it up, had a look, and the first thing I noticed was there was no isolator for this other building. So I thought, okay, this looks a bit odd. There should be some main isolator for the supply going to this other building. So I then opened it up, had a look behind the board where all the cabling is, and I noticed that the cabling going to the back building was actually coming out of the back of the protection fuses and bypassing all the meters, which obviously is kind of illegal because you're stealing electricity. And that's the kind of thing that you guys would have been inspecting and make sure that that never happens.
Yeah.
And obviously this had got past them. And when I brought it up with the particular people that were running the business in this building, they said, well, we've only actually been here for a few months. We just started renting the place. We didn't even know. So
it's a good fallback.
Yeah, that's right. Whether they knew or not, I don't know. They had literally rung us up for an air conditioner unit. So, but it was one of those things. It happens. So you went from there, and then you ended up in the electrical union. I mean, how did that change? Where did that come from going from on the tools to saying, you know what, I actually want to be, in the union, helping people, making sure that they get their entitlements?
Well, the union knew they wanted me before I knew I wanted the union.
That's always nice, isn't it?
Yeah, so I was a delegate at my company. So I represented people when they got in trouble or if they needed union support. The real basic support if they're going in for a meeting. You come in and you support them. If there's going to be any changes, you go as a representative of that group to make sure that nothing unfair happens. So I was a delegate already. And then when this new job came up, they needed younger delegates. So that was one thing that helped them because this is for apprentices and the youth and you need someone that's done their apprenticeship semi-recently. So that was sort of how I stepped into it. They approached me, they said, do you want to work for us? And I've always been really interested in helping people, although I do really miss the tools and I do a lot of work at home, electrical work, just to keep up to date with it. But so they approached me, they said, we want you to apply for this job. I still went through the whole application process and I ended up getting it. So that's how I got into it.
Okay, that's cool. One of the interesting things you mentioned there was really about this idea of keeping up to date with your skills. I myself am obviously now a full-time teacher, but I still work on the weekends and in the afternoons or whatever. So obviously I can keep my skills up and, it's a good side gig. You can make good money on the side doing it.
Yeah, you don't have to currently be working if you've already got your electrical license, to renew it every few years.
Yeah, and with your license working for the distributor, did you have to have a different license for that?
You still have the same electrical license, and that allows you to work on the switchboards and that. To be allowed to work on the poles, you need to have a separate license. So whether you're in the distributor or whether you're a contractor that's doing this work for money, no matter what, you need to have a separate, it's called an ASP license. It's called an accredited service provider. And there's different levels. So if I say, so it's a level 2 ASP, but I had my category 1, 3 and 4. So 1 is disconnect, reconnect. So that means you're allowed to turn the whole power off in a house, not just the main switch, but the actual fuses before the meter. That's disconnect, reconnect. Number 2 is, this is from memory, I hope I don't get them mixed around. Number 2 is the one that I don't have, and that's underground. And that's being allowed to disconnect and reconnect to the power lines, but underground. So I don't have that one. Number 3 is overhead, to work on the overhead power lines. So I had that one. And number 4 is metering, to be allowed to replace a meter. Now that was when I did it. Now you don't, there's no such thing as a level 4. Well, you don't need to have your category 4 in order to replace a meter now.
Yeah, which is an important thing because those sorts of licenses and rules are constantly changing. I know myself, when I first started, I was actually qualified and as an electrician to be able to work all the way to the council fuse, but they then make the change. That's no longer the case anymore. The council fuse, I should say, service fuse. The council fuse is the old term for it, but yeah, so now it is really from the main switch onwards which a standard contractor can work. So those things are changing all the time, and you've got to be mindful of that because you don't want to get caught out doing some work, finding that you're actually technically unlicensed to do it because there are fines involved in that. So you want to try and avoid that
fines.
If you possibly can.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, I know I've done some work where I know, okay, I can't do this part of it, so then I would call somebody that I know who works for a company that does have that license, and they will come along and just do that little part of the work, and I'll do everything up to it. So I think that's really, really important.
Yes.
So anyway, that's really interesting to know that there's such a wide variety of things that you can do in the electrotech industry, and you've gone from working on the tools to a completely different part of the industry, but you're still in the industry. And even in your apprenticeship there, where you mentioned you'd gone from drawings to out on the tools, so just in your apprenticeship alone, you've gone from totally different areas, which would give you obviously a great experience. So now on to the next section where we talk about tools and we talk about equipment and stuff like that. That is different for each individual area of electrotech. So Tara, what's in your toolbox? What did you bring along to show us?
Okay, so for the distributors, I brought along this master key. Now this master key, say a lot of people want to lock their switchboards at home. Now they have to actually order a special lock in order to lock your switchboards. Now their key will only open their lock. It won't open any other locks. This one is a master. So anyone that's got one of those locks and have all the different keys, this will open all of them. Now this is for not only people's switchboards, but larger switchboards. If you're walking through a big building, you'll see, the big door with switchboard inside. And the keys that you use are these kind of master keys. So these are really essential. Unfortunately, there isn't just one. There's an NMB. There's some people have SKN, which is a different kind. There's alloys, and they're different. So when I was back at the distributor, I actually had quite a few different ones, different master keys. So that was just something interesting I thought I'd bring along. The main reason why I can't bring any of the other interesting stuff along is because when I left the company, I had to give it all back.
Yes, no, that feeling well. Yeah. Okay, so what else do we have here?
Okay, so here, this is what I thought people might find a little bit interesting when it comes to the union. A lot of the stuff in my toolbox now is, the Apprenticeship and Traineeship Act. A lot of boring stuff. But this one's a little bit more interesting. The course wasn't fun, I'll tell you that. So I have my federal, I've got to check which one's federal. One of them is federal and the other one's state, and they're right of entries. So one of them, the state one, pretty sure, yeah, the state one, under state law, I can enter a workplace if I think that they call it a suspected contravention of safety, which basically means if anything's been reported to be unsafe, I can show this to the company with 24 hours notice, and then I can go in the next day and make sure everything's safe. If it's not safe, I can advise the workers that it's not safe. I can also call Safe Work and make them come out and check. If we have a health and safety representative on site, which is one of the workers, and it's something quite unsafe, they can stop work straight away. I can't stop work. I don't have the authority to stop work, but weirdly enough, the workers do, of course, because if something's unsafe, we shouldn't be working. Then we've got my federal right of entry, which gives me access to be able to go on and speak to people that can be members of the union. And that just allows me to go on site and meet them in a break at a designated place that the company's chosen. It's also a 24-hour notice thing. Now, I have put one of these in and it have been rejected. What I do then, and it was unfairly rejected, what I did then was went and complained to the people that gave me this Fair Work, and they told the company that I was allowed to be on. And so the next time I didn't have issues coming on. But we do get that quite a lot, especially in the larger construction sites. Sometimes we do get turned around.
I can imagine that would be quite the case, because a lot of times you will come across people maybe doing things that they probably shouldn't do, working unsafely, and obviously nobody wants to get
Happens
fined.
everywhere.
So yeah, I can imagine that would be the case.
At least we can go on and get that fixed and safe for everyone without the company having to pay a huge fine to work safe. So we can, it's about being fair.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's,
right.
you know,
It's
the
about
fair
making
thing
sure
is,
people go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We all work to go home and to spend our money, and we don't work for the we don't work to give the company all this money and make sure, you know, the boss is doing really well and having a good home life. It's for our home life, and that's the whole reason why we're there.
Awesome.
So,
Well, thank you very, very much for coming along for
Okay.
today. It's been fantastic. We'd love to have you here, obviously, every year and speak to our students who just had a tutorial beforehand. And yeah, great. Thank you very much.
thank you for having me.
No problem. And remember, if you've got something from this video, if you've learned something from this video, please like, subscribe, all those things. You know what to do. And I will see you in the next video.